is being blanketed by Saharan dust. The mountains, well, you almost can't see the mountains actually. So please, in everything that you do, as we always say, take your necessary precautions, especially those who may suffer from certain lung diseases or ailments. This morning's conversation, my very first conversation, focuses on a different style of governance. In fact, my first guest has written a column or a series of columns outlining the logic behind moving away from a party political system and one that is more so to the state to achieve quality governance based off of the development of policies and programs that seek national interests rather than party affiliations. Now, that being said, how realistic is this? In fact, how easy would it also be to implement in TNT or any other nation for that fact, but TNT in specific, given considerations that we are still a small island developing state and our constitution, which we just had a reform exercise, is not fully fit for the nation that it governs. That being said, what are also the tenets of this new style of governance? That columnist and veteran journalist is Mr. Tony Rackle-Fraser, and he joins us virtually. Hello, sir, and welcome to the program. Thank you so very much for joining us this morning.
Good to be here.
Well, Mr. Rackle-Fraser, let me ask you, let's start by asking your opinion on the style of governance that we currently adopted, and that is based off the Westminster system of government. Do you believe that this is something that is faulty and to a certain extent has not truly been representative of what TNT is and what TNT needs? Do you think that the style of governance has failed Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, it's not so much the style of governance, but it's really the formulation of the governance structure of the country, which is something very different from the style of government. The style of government comes out of the structure. And my argument is that the structure, the party structure, post-colonial period has not worked for us in the ways that we all agree that it should have. The party system that we have followed is essentially based on race and to some extent geopolitical strata of the country. Imagine a country as small as Trinidad and Tobago can be so separated into blocks. When you think about geopolitical differences, you're talking about large countries, even continents. But ours has been structured in a way based on the ethnic composition of the country, Afro and Indo-Trinidad and Tobago being very separate. You can see from what is happening in Tobago now, the differences because of the party structure. And my argument is that the politicians of the last 50, 60 years in the post-independence period have created this structure to benefit their political organization. Afro on one side, Indo on the other side, and Tobago separate from the two.
It's most interesting, isn't it, that you've argued that the structure of governance really has led to a certain sense of segregation and separation amongst the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that this style has also unfortunately led to geopolitical issues within TNT itself, and more so the issues of, I suppose, the separation amongst races. That being said, has it left the people of Trinidad and Tobago out, this structure that you've referred to?
Absolutely, and that is one of the reasons for the clamor for constitutional change, because the structure of the constitution does not allow for people participation. What we are allowed to do is every 5 years dip our fingers in the ink and select a government, and thereafter wait for the next 5 years before we can intervene again, and intervene in the sense that they allow us, the political parties and the government and the opposition, they allow the population to intervene. But along the way, there is really no serious interaction between the governed and the government. And what I'm saying is that we have to break up this political party style, whether it's idealistic or not. The fact is that what we have is not working. People, almost like a lodge, cling to their political parties, notwithstanding its relevance and its importance to the country. I'm sure that you're aware, if you've been following the politics over the last few months, is that when the government of the day invited the opposition local government representatives to talk about local government reform, the head of the party said, no, there is no discussion on that. And one of the councillors determined that he would go and meet with the relevant bodies that invited him. And her response was that forget government. Importance here is the party. So that the party structure stands in the way of interaction. And what I'm advocating seriously is that we have to attempt to get out of that mold. And the advocacy is for individual representation rather than individual representation at the parliamentary level and at the government level, the level of the executive, the cabinet, if you like. What has to prevail there is you're looking for people. The attempt is to look for people with competence and skills to be ministers and not party representatives. The representatives of the constituencies will be at another level at the parliamentary level, but not at the level of the government. We elect people with skill and competence and management capacity. That's my argument.
Well, Mr. Rackelford, you're absolutely right in saying that it sounds most idealistic because on paper, the tenets that you've argued...
If you're not idealistic in this world, we have gone to the pragmatic way for these last 60 plus years and it has not worked. And yes, I am being idealistic, very deliberately so, because we have got to get out of the trap that we're in. It's as simple as that.
Now, though I fully agree with you in that sense as well, my question is essentially, given our history post-independence, even recently using the example of that what seems to be a fight between the opposition and the government that doesn't deal with the issues of TNT anymore, deals more so with the parties rather than anything else, as you've exemplified. How easy is it to create a non-partisan system, especially with the citizens who have seemed to have fallen into this trap and supported party many a times over country?
Of course, it's not easy. If you are attempting change, whenever there is change and transformation, anywhere in the world, in any point in historical record, change is not easy to come by, and I don't expect anything of significance is going to happen, both in terms of getting any changes in the Constitution and any major transformation. But you've got to start at some point in time to work towards it. One of our problems, and this is a problem of all of the parties, and I identify mainly the small parties here who are attempting change, is that they wait for the election, 2 months before the election, to attempt a hurrah and see how they can huff and puff and blow the house down, as Lloyd Bess used to say. But it isn't going to work. You have to start some point in time to work towards transformation, and there's not going to be any transformation in this attempt at constitutional reform and this attempt at change in this election. The two parties again are going to lock horns, and they are going to attempt, and not only attempt, but they're going, one of them is going to get into government and the other one in opposition, and we go happily along that course for another 5 years.
What do you suppose is the most appropriate way, the most appropriate avenue, or the best point rather, to start this transformation of which you've spoken of?
We are doing so now. by talking to people and engaging people and attempting to conscientize people towards the need for a major kind of transformation, not simply, Basdio Pandey used to talk about exchange, not simply exchange, but rather transformational change. And the education has to start now. It has to start with people. What we are doing here is an attempt at transformation, is that we are attempting to tell people essentially, look, this thing has not worked. Mm-hmm. This constitutional form that was derived from Britain is not working, and that we have fashioned into a two-party state based on race. If the two-party state in England is based on some kind of ideological difference, and there's no major ideological difference. But I'm just saying that is based on something outside of the debate. Ours is based on race, as simple as that.
Now, I wanted to move forward to exploring your idea a bit further about establishing a government through a non-party system. What are the options for how a cabinet will be selected or even elected?
Yeah, I'm saying essentially, rather than put up party slates, you put up individuals with skills who determine that they want to get into government and make a difference. They canvass the electorate in the same way, not in the same way, but on the basis of some kind of substantive platform, ideological platform for a particular post. So you have somebody who has economic and financial skills and understanding and capacity, who will be
Mr. Bracco-Fraser, my sincerest apologies for having to interrupt you, Sue. We just have to take a quick break just to try and fix something. But bear with us. We'll be right back after this, and we'll continue this conversation. Mile?
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit. And then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize for the interruption, but thank you very much for being with us this morning. As I welcome back Mr. Tony Rackell-Freezer, our discussion this morning is a different structure for government and to a greater extent a different structure for cabinet, which makes up Parliament. Mr. Rackell-Freezer, welcome back to the program. Thank you for being with us. Now, yes. Continuing the conversation where we left off, you were expressing the need for experts, individuals with a track record, individuals with an educational background and experience in certain backgrounds to apply to contest in an election, allow the electorate to select the candidate of which they think is most ideal to run for any single position. Now, that's specifically for a cabinet and a non-political cabinet, which makes a parliament. But what about parliamentary representation? What about MPs? In terms of a non-partisan parliament, how do we go about electing the best MPs for the areas across Trinidad and Tobago, the constituencies?
Yeah, and that's a good question. My advocacy is for in a same kind of way, in a similar kind of way, we are talking about individual candidates. If you go back to the 1940s and 50s, that is what existed. You had individual candidates. That was at a very low level in terms of capacity and all of that. I'm suggesting that we not return to that, but that coming from the constituencies, you have individuals who will be supported by their constituencies and elected to represent them in a very significant way. And one major aspect of what I'm advocating is that those elected representatives will not have ministerial positions to divert their energies to. As we know it in the system now, you have a representative who is a minister, and his real functioning is all about the ministry that he or she is managing. What I'm suggesting is that the representatives now represent their constituencies and in Parliament where the laws are made and matters are passed and so on, in that same kind of way, but not on the party basis. People stick together and hold together a party line for the sake of the party line, forget what the element they're discussing. In instances, and it happens quite frequently with most parties, one party, when in government, advocates, puts a law in place, and when it gets into opposition, it opposes that. The best example is the Caribbean Court of Justice. When the UNC was in office, the UNC advocated for and was one of the major adherents to the notion of a Caribbean Court of Justice. When they got out of power, they are firmly against it. So because of the party line. So I'm saying that individuals who don't have the albatross of a party around their neck are better suited, one, to represent their constituencies, and two, to pass the laws which are important for the country.
Mr. Rackell-Freezer, one of the points that you noted at the beginning of our conversation this morning is the fact that currently the system does not cater for the electorate to have a contribution. We only have a say every 5 years. Now, there are certain exercises that take place, such as the constitutional reform, where they had public meetings and cottage meetings. But that's just about it. It's just every 5 years the electorate is allowed to participate. So in this structure of governance that you speak of, how can we ensure that we don't have to wait for 5 years for the electorate to have a say, that the electorate will be allowed to participate in governance?
Because you have the power of recall. Some representative is going against what has been advocated, what he or she has advocated before being elected to office, going completely against that. The electorate will have the power of recall, that power holding over the representative, the minister, to ensure that he or she stays on the line that he or she advocated at the start. No, I'm not saying that the person has to be fixed in stone, but you cannot go propose one thing one day and the following day you're going completely against it. Yes, there must be shifts and there must be a certain kind of dynamism in the politics and in governance and so on, but it must be reasonable. And more than that, the representative, the minister, must be able to argue that case before the electorate in the constituencies and across the country.
Mm-hmm. Well, my final question to you this morning, Mr. Ratcliffe-Fraser, is that arguably, based off of all that has been said and presented this morning, the traditional basis for governance has proven to be counterproductive for Trinidad and Tobago, one which we can agree upon. However, how do we now penetrate this way of thinking of which has been so widely accepted? To a certain extent, young people are frustrated, they're not coming out to vote, they don't even know whether or not they will participate when the opportunity is given in 2025. So that being said, how do we now penetrate this base? How do we penetrate this mindset, this way of thinking, and forge a new path forward?
Education, advocacy, working with young people, as you say, is a very important thing, and I think it's an important thing, not so much with the election of 2025 in mind, but in terms of educating the population to a different way of thinking. You know, things take time. We can't look for immediate solutions. We've been in this bind for over 60 years, and it's not going to happen in 6 months. So that it won't be a popular kind of position to hold for especially the young political parties, the new political parties, the small political parties, is to start not to attempt to get into government in 2025. I think that's almost impossible. But to start to educate young people especially to a new way of thinking. And I think there is room and space outside there. If you look at the electoral figures, every election, you have 35% of the eligible electorate outside of the voting business. I would think that if you start working at that kind of level, maybe in 2025 you will stand a chance of moving the two relics, the PNM and the UNC, from office.
Indeed. Mr. Ratcliffe-Fraser, thank you so much for your contribution towards the conversation and your way of educating the public through your column and through joining me this morning on AM Prime. I certainly appreciate your experience and your knowledge in this conversation. Thank you so much, sir.
And I wish you the best, young fellow.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Tony Ratcliffe-Fraser joining us this morning on AM Prime. I agree that his approach is idealistic, but I will also agree with what Mr. Ratcliffe-Fraser said, that we've adopted this pessimistic view for so long that it's time for idealism. It's time for us to adopt a way of thinking that sees the benefit for TNT and not the benefit for a political party. And if we can move out of that mindset, if we can move out of that trap, ladies and gentlemen, certainly there is still opportunity. But a lot of it has to do with you. So I'll leave you with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a break on this program now, and when we return, we'll get into some more conversations. We'll be right back.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services,
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us. We continue our conversations this morning. As you know, that on a Monday from about about 6:30 till about 7 o'clock. We are pleased to welcome the Trinidad and Tobago National Council of Parent Teachers Associations as they continue their advocacy in supporting and empowering parents, fostering the happiness and well-being of our children here in TNT. I'm joined this morning virtually by Mr. Walter Stewart. He is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago National Council of Parent Teachers Associations, and he is with us, as I said, virtually. Unfortunately, my colleague, I will refer to him as my colleague, is not in the studio. That's okay, because we're still able to have a conversation this morning. Hello, Mr. Stewart. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, Mr. Shah, and of course, your colleagues there in the station. As you said, I'm virtual this morning, but of course, that's how the hybrid system works sometimes. A pleasant good morning to your viewership. This is, of course, week 3 for 13-week school term, the last school term for the academic year 23-24. Like I said last week, it's one of our busiest terms, SBA's completion and submission. We also have the CSEC exams and, of course, the CAPE exams. To all our students who are facing some kind of exam this term, of course, including our national test, the month of June, we wish you all the best. And of course, we can only expect the best from you. Put your best foot forward, and of course, you will reap justifiable rewards. So to all the students this week in particular, we ask for your safety, we ask for your security, and we ask that you really have a good, productive week. Today, of course, April 22nd is World Earth Day. Yes? Speaks about the sustainability and, of course, the care for Mother Earth. And, of course, as the Ministry of Agriculture and the other agencies regard World Earth Day today, we're going to join with them, be it in tree planting, recycling, or whatever aspect of the day that you want to celebrate and to recognize. We join with you in celebrating and, of course, acknowledging World Earth Day. I'm alone today. National PRA is unavoidably absent, but of course, we really want to continue the program. Again, our very profound thanks to management and staff of EM Prime, the WESN in particular, for allowing the National PTA to hear its voice, and of course, as we continue advocacy for our nation's children. I want to speak today again on school violence. And you say, Mr. Stewart, that is a subject now. Indeed it is. But of course, it still continues to plague our students in our schools. And once this continues to happen, parents must have a voice, must have a say in an attempt to reduce, prevent, mitigate what is taking place in our schools with regards to school violence. I often start when speaking on school violence. I often start by saying that school violence is nothing new. Why? From time immemorial, school violence has been in existence. I went to school decades ago and, of course, experienced some level of school violence. I was fast to say that I myself was bullied during my primary school life. Yes, let me tell you that story. I grew up in Tobago, and of course I went to a school in Scarborough, and I had to walk home every day, not living too far from school. I had to walk home every day from school to home. And of course, our schools normally will terminate at about 2:30. So 2:30 minutes to 3, I'm heading home. I'm looking forward to meeting my friends and family at home. And there was always this one particular guy from a school on the way to the primary school who was always there to harass, pounce on me, and of course, even to give me some blows. And it seems as though I could not prevent this guy, no matter how I pleaded with him, no matter how I spoke with him, he continued to harass me. What did I do? I decided there has to be a mediator in this whole event. And surely enough, one of the days I called my father. I said, listen, Dad, meet me at this particular school, because every day on my way home, this guy meets me at this particular location and pounces on me. My dad came that particular afternoon and was able to speak with the guy. Of course, we were about the same age then, 9, 10 around there at the time. And of course, from that day onwards, because of the mediation put about by my dad, that bullying had stopped. It's one of the ways viewers that can help to mitigate bullying that is taking place in our schools. Mightn't be your father, might even be a peer, another school student can be able to bring all parties together and be able to mediate under the circumstances. I'm happy to say that after that incident at school, the gentleman or the guy who was a boy at the time, the boy and myself grew up as teenagers, young adults, even now, we still have a very cordial, respectful relationship even after those experiences. School violence continues to plague our schools. Up to last week, I saw at least 3 videos of school violence in our schools. One as bad as taking the school desks, school chairs, and tossing it, throwing it after a colleague. Members, these are very frightening occurrences because we regard the school as safe havens. Schools are supposed to be sanctities, and if there is ever a place that our students are supposed to feel safe and secure and well protected, it should be in the walls of our schools and the compound of our schools, in our school environment. And deviating from that, of course, every parent would be concerned. No parent wants to send his child or her child out to school and that child returns at the end of the school day tattered, torn, and battered. We want to ensure that when we send our children to school, there is a progression of learning taking place in an environment that is safe, peaceful, tranquil, and amenable purely for learning and, of course, building a holistic development among our charges. Anything at all outside of that, the National PTA is going to pronounce in no uncertain ways, and of course we are going to be against such activities taking place in our schools. What is school violence really? We look at physical violence, we look at threats, we look at verbal abuse, we look at cyberbullying. All those are aspects of school violence which presently permeate our schools. Let's look at physical attacks in particular. These continue to plague our schools, plague the school environment, and we are saying a big no, zero tolerance when it comes to school violence. School violence was of major concern to even the Minister of Education and, of course, the Ministry of Education technocrats last year, so much so that she had to pronounce on introducing a MILAT-type environment for students who go afoul of school discipline and, of course, what is required of our students in school. We ourselves, the National PTA, visited the MILAT program in Dabadi to see what occasions the MILAT program and what are some of the success stories taking place at MILAT. We were impressed because we realized that students there who go in into the program, of course, this is a program post age 16, but of course the government now, the ministry, is ensuring that even students who fall afoul of the school laws and the school regulations under age 16 can now go into MILAT and be rehabilitated. So much so that while this is a male residential program, the ministry, through of course the Ministry of Youth Development, is now trying to introduce as well a component of female deviant students can also be accommodated in a separate arrangement. Many of the students who have come to the MILAT program have come out with several certificates of school passes at the CSEC level. I can even attest to one of my colleagues who has gone through the MILAT program and is successful. He has gotten his 5 CSEC passes and is even going on now to further subjects because of the introduction and what MILAT program has been to him. So we had endorsed, and of course we continue to endorse those mechanisms and those measures put into the system in order to mitigate what is taking place in our schools. We need to create a safe environment for our students. In other words, when the students go to schools on a daily basis, you need to be assured that, listen, my best interest is being taken care of. The ministry, the administration of the school, and all the agencies attached to the school are paying close attention to my well-being and my welfare, and they are seeking my interest. So that the efforts of all these agencies and all these stakeholders put into the system would assure us as parents that when our children go to school, they are in a safe environment. We are very, very, very much concerned about that. Peer mediation. While I was at one time president of the Tobago Region Parent Teacher Association, that organization, in collaboration with Families in Action, hosted a peer mediation program for a few of our secondary school students in Tobago. Why is that important? Because some of the times, students may not listen to Walter Stewart, may not even listen to their teachers or their principals or an adult. But one of their peers, one of their own, one of their colleagues, well-trained and well-regarded and well-respected, can be able to pull them in a corner and mediate and speak to them for conflict resolution and, of course, avoiding and preventing deviant behavior in our schools. So this program was a weekend training program, residential program at a particular guest house in Tobago, and Families in Action was able to tutor the students then. They were teenagers. I think there were some of them from 3rd form, 4th form, and 5th form. They were the ones that we pulled aside for that particular weekend in order to teach them, model, and help them to be able to assist their peers in conflict resolution and issues relating to deviant behavior and how to prevent this. We want to revisit this particular program in several of our schools here in Trinidad and, of course, in Tobago, to see how that could be another mechanism, another panacea what is taking place in our schools, so that peers can be able to mediate and, of course, assist their peers in conflict resolution and how to avoid deviant behavior and, of course, thus reducing school violence. School violence also reflects what is taking place in our society, in our community, because monkey see, monkey do is a favorite expression that as a child I grew up with. In other words, what I see the adults doing, I mimic what they are doing. And of course, one doesn't have to go too far. For the weekend, last weekend, over the past months, for example, we see what is taking place with regards to murders and violence in Trinidad and Tobago. People have become so brazen that they are willing, even in the front of our schools, to go and kill the enemies or persons who might have wronged them for one reason or the other. They go even close to our police stations, stones throw in front of our police stations, and are able to commit those heinous crimes. Our students are looking on. Our students are seeing what is taking place, and they are modeling, ignorantly so, and of course ill-advised, but they are modeling what they are seeing in the wider society, and of course bringing those ill effects into our schools. We have been promoting as well what we call the National Parenting Program, because many times this is more than just the student. This is more than just your son, more than just your daughter. This child has been experiencing socio-economic and other types of situations within their very homes. Many of them probably have been traumatized even by the abuse of dad to mom. Many of them, of course, in poverty-riddled areas as well, who do not even know where their next meal is coming from. So they're experiencing so many types of social issues. And of course, they are coming in the schools hardened as they are and pent up as they are with all these problems that they are facing in their homes. And to them, this is the way that, that they can react and retaliate when these situations confront them. So they are lashing up, they are retaliating, and they are saying, I am not concerned what the consequences are. This is how I'm dealing with my situation. We are advocating as members of the National Parent Teacher Association to begin the intervention at the primary school level. Why the primary school? Because at that level, you are able to interact with the parents of those students at the primary level and be able to identify, deal with, and correct some of the situations, problems, and challenges that these families are facing from this tender age. And of course, it is by that mechanism, by that means, that you're able to follow the child from the infant stage, go through their primary school lives, into their secondary school lives, and be able to monitor the various interactions and, of course, the various attitudes and behaviors of this particular child, because you have a history of the child's own home situation and you can deal with it. I have said this on very many occasions. My father was a headmaster in those days in Tobago, and he was able to tell you the wherewithal, the circumstances of all these children at their various levels, because he was like a community worker. Even though he was the school principal, he was like a community worker, visiting the homes of these children who come to our schools. Very recently, I had a conversation with a former senior police officer who was indicating to us that a similar program was had in the TTPS, where similar to the community police service that they presently have, were able to go into our schools, interview and speak with students, and based upon the circumstances indicated by those students, pay personal visits to the homes of the students over the weekend, interact with and be able to report back to their seniors some of the circumstances facing the family and, of course, consequently, the students. Of course, many times it will call for social intervention, many times it will call for other kinds of interventions, but they were hands-on in the communities, in those homes, being able to understand what our children and our parents are going through. How we long to have those situations revisited. How we long to have that particular involvement by our TTPS back into our communities, into our societies, in order to bring some measure of relief and some measure of assistance to our parents and our students. Listen, this is a whole of society approach. NPTA cannot do it alone, so we are calling on community workers, community leaders, ministries, agencies to jump on board with the NPTA and ensure that we take every and any approach, legally so, in order to ensure that our children are no longer plagued with the level and the occurrences of violence presently taking place in our schools. We will continue to plead, we will continue to let our voices be heard, we will continue to advocate for our schools, for safety and prevention of school violence in our schools, in order to ensure that our schools return to a safe haven where all our students go out and are well preserved. Mr. Shah?
Mr. Stewart, I thank you very much for your presentation as such this morning, and for all that you highlighted and pointed out. Now, what I can appreciate is that in your conversation you've also pointed out how solutions do exist. And such solutions exist through opportunity. You've referenced the MyLat program, for example, even sharing an example of a success story. But there's one point that has stuck with me throughout your entire presentation, and that is your experience when you were growing up, and given the fact that you were being bullied, you felt confident and you felt safe to go to your father and express the situation that you were going through, what you were facing. And it was through your father's intervention that a solution came to light. That being said, your father intervened without actually contributing to a fight, without actually contributing to a situation. And oftentimes here in TNT, what I've noticed is that in a lot of these fights, in trying to resolve it, I've seen adults fighting students and students fighting adults, and we don't always get the entire story, but it's always appalling to even learn that parents are even entering a school compound to try and deal with that situation by themselves without going through what would be seen as the most appropriate channels. I want to come to that point again, Mr. Stewart. The role of parents in counteracting bullying, the role of parents in creating a safe space and environment that allows for a child to see it as beneficial to approach a parent. Some children are too nervous, too scared to actually speak to their parents and be open and honest with them. But how is it, and how would you advise parents going about in creating that environment of understanding, in creating that safe space, and then deciding on the most appropriate action in order to deal with the situation that their child may be facing within the school setting?
Good point, Mr. Shaw. Listen, parents are supposed to be so intimately involved in their children's educational life. They are able to perceive when the child is experiencing some kind of untoward situation, even at their schools. This is the relationship that I even shared with my daughters as well. Because you would understand that if something is bothering them or affecting them, their level of attitude and behavior would be different. And of course, we need to ensure that parents, of course, take the necessary time to mother and father their children, that any hint of suspicion or any hint of problem that your child is facing, you're able to identify and of course call the child and say, listen, Johnny, listen, Jane, something is bothering you. You are not the same as you were yesterday or the day before. Let's talk about it and let's approach it. So that one of the ways, Mr. Shaw, that parents can be able to help their students who are involved in whatever activity at all that is inimical to their studies and of course to what is really progressing with regards to their education, is to really share a personal, intimate relationship with their children. Of course, there are other mechanisms that we can put in place. Time will not allow us to do that, but I'm saying let us get to understand our children and let us get to grow with our children, be able to love them and be able to identify the challenges that they are facing.
And even, Mrs. Stewart, we've just spoken about children who are being bullied, but a part of this as well that I think we have not always acknowledged is parents dealing with their children who themselves are bullies. And it's something that is absolutely important where parenting skills come into play, where we even speak about discipline. Do you think that has been often left out of the conversation?
Oh yes, certainly. Sometimes I even think that parents might be even afraid of their charges and sometimes the cart is put before the horse. It's almost as though the child is the parent and the parent is the child. But of course, there needs to be that level of strict discipline. And of course, the children have to know that whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. And that there has to be that, even though I love you, there has to be that rod of correction placed on you when, of course, you are in discipline. So the students or the child or the children need to know where the buck stops. I am still the parent in this whole situation. I am your mother, I am your father, and of course I have the right to discipline you when you go right.
Indeed. Mr. Stewart, I want to thank you very much for your time this morning and for your presence, and I want to thank the NPTA for the continued part in this program, continued contributions in order to make society a better place, to make the school system and the school environment not only something that exists within those boundaries, but it's, as you've mentioned, it starts at home and it goes beyond just from a 8 to 2, 8 to 3 setting. But I would like to continue this conversation. There's a lot more that we can get into with respect to dealing with it. But I thank you very much for introducing the conversation, and we look forward to the next segment.
My pleasure. Take care. Have a good day, sir.
All the very best to you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break on AM Prime. We will return shortly as we do have a lot more to share with you this morning. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. as we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation. Contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two.
Why? You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
It is, now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we're exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited for my next conversation. When you think about Tobago, what's the very first things that come to mind? Some people might say, oh, the beautiful beaches that exist, the lifestyle, the culture that seems so welcoming and warm. Oh, but what about the food, the delicacies? Oxtail? Nah, oxtail is not the first thing that comes to your mind. Neither is curry goat. The first thing that comes to your mind, and I know it, is curried crab and dumpling. Crab is an essential part of Tobago's culture, whether it be through the delicacy to the recreation, crab racing, for example. Crab is very important, and we all go to Tobago for crab and dumpling. If you haven't done that as yet, I don't know where you're living, but you have to do it. And the thing is, today is also World Earth Day, when we focus on sustainability. And in Tobago, it's really, really exciting that the island has created history with the launch of the first crab farm at the Buko Historical Park and Nature Center. This took place on April 12th. This morning I'm joined by Chairman of the Canaan Bonaccord Crown Point Committee on Sustainable Development, Mr. Wade David. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Good morning to all your viewers on this platform.
Well, Mr. David, let me ask you, the brainchild behind this project, how was this project conceptualized and even come to reality?
Well, this project, I must say, is a truly collaborative effort. I am the chairman of a group, the Canaan Bonaccord Crown Point Committee on Sustainable Community Development. And this idea came from one of our members, the project manager, Mr. Kelton Thomas. And he had the idea that in Tobago, the crab stock is dwindling, and what we see being sold at markets and on the roadside are increasingly small, and the habitat as well is being depleted and destroyed. So he had the idea to come up with the crab farm, but we did not have the necessary funds or resources. It seemed like one of those ideas that, it sounds very good, but may never seem to get off the ground. But we worked on it, we sat, we had meetings, we deliberated, we got people involved, and through the Digicel EPIC grant fund, we received the grant of $100,000 to launch this project. And we have been working with the Canaan Bonaccord Sports Club, the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, and as well the Division of Community Development in Tobago. So we've had a lot of partners in this project, and I must say this project is for the community. It's by the people and for the people.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Please speak to me now about this plan to breed crabs in captivity. I know you mentioned Mr. Kelton Thomas. and how this idea came about. But in terms of the actual plan to breed crabs in captivity, please tell us a bit more about that.
Well, the specific crab that we intend to breed are the local blue crabs. And after, studying their behavior, their habitats, we decided upon a 2-pond grout system where we dug 2 20 by 40 foot ponds. And both cast in concrete at the bottom. One of the ponds, we used the same dirt that was dug out, because that soil, or in our location at the Boko Historical Park, is known for having crabs in that soil. So we use the same soil and put it back into the pond to allow the crabs to burrow in a seemingly natural habitat. What the crabs would do after having mated and become pregnant, when they're ready to release the eggs, they start walking. So that's when we see, even in Trinidad and parts of Tobago, at night during full moons, the crabs will be walking across the road and be easy to catch. They're looking for a water source in order to lay their eggs. So we provide that second pond with a walkway for them to walk and go into the second pond, which will be filled with water, stagnated water, to allow them to wash or lay their eggs, and then we'll allow the growth. Our initial stock, we put in male to female at a ratio of 1 male to 3 females to allow for the crabs to mate and be able to, to respond well to the environment. So this is our pilot, and we are looking to expand as well. So we're studying and piloting at the moment as well.
So this current pilot project, which entails 2 ponds, there is a possibility that further expansion can happen.
Yes, definitely, because with this project, we want to not only have a financial return on our investment or Digicel's investment or collaborative effort, we want to have a social return on the investment as well. So we want to be able to run a lucrative business that is able to fund projects in our community. We have projects such as our Village Olympics. We have various sporting and cultural events that we would wish to see happen. And we are saying that we don't need to wait on government, or we don't always have to depend on begging a sponsor. If we can have a lucrative business in our community that acts as a corporation for social investment, that's the end game for this crab farm.
So essentially, arguably, this is an agro-entrepreneurship initiative.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. We want to be able to create employment as well. So the persons that will be working on the farm, eventually feeding the crabs, we want to hire persons from the community. We want to offer training as well. And we want to offer tours and site visits to tourists and to school children that would provide some level of education with regard to the crabs and Tobago's natural environment.
But Mr. David, you face one challenge. There would be those who would argue that this pond, which is to a certain extent hopefully a mass production of blue crabs for the island of Tobago, may actually be taking away from people's livelihoods. How do you respond to that?
Right, so those very persons who we got the crab stock from are the very persons whose livelihoods, who catch the crabs for a living. So we are engaging in partnerships with these persons. We are asking them to come on board, whether you're young, you're old, whether you're connected to some family or some organization or not. We're asking you to contact us, come on board with the crab farm, and let us work together, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure that whatever crab is being sold, whether by the crab farm or on the road, that it is the best quality, it's of a standardized size and quality for consumption.
And what are the plans for the actual product of the blue crabs, apart from consumption on the island? are there any plans in the future to expand beyond just the island of Tobago, perhaps regionally or even internationally?
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's why we named it the Tobago Crab Farm, because we want to be able to leverage that natural beauty and environmental sustainability of our island. So we want to be able to sell in the region as well as internationally. So we are looking to innovate our products as well, not just the usual crab and shells, but we're looking to, I don't want to sell out all our ideas at the moment, but we're looking to have some innovative crab products on the market that would be able to compete regionally and internationally.
I agree. Let's not sell out all the secrets to success or the plans in the making. But beyond that, tell me about the standards being set, about the quality of the blue crabs and the products that are being put out there.
Right. So we are seeing, unfortunately, persons selling at the side of the road, but there's no cold storage. So from morning to midday or even sometimes afternoons, persons are out there selling these crabs in hot, humid conditions, which, is also a detriment or it's not very gentle on the crabs, I would imagine as well. So we want to be able to teach persons how to properly store their crabs, and even if you're selling at the side of the road, we want you to be able to sell crabs that are fully matured as well, because we are seeing some very small crabs that are not fully grown being sold and at some very exorbitant prices. So if we can also work together collaboratively with crab sellers to standardize prices, I think that would also help the industry, and it will encourage more persons to buy as well.
And finally, of course, when we speak about the island of Tobago, we have to speak about tourism. How does this translate to a tourism product, diversification even within the tourism sector in Tobago? What are you offering tourists?
Right. We are offering tourists the essence, the flavor of Tobago. As you rightly said in the introduction, you can't think of Tobago without curry crabs and dumpling. So we want to be able to package that to tourists in a way that they like. We want to be able to tell them that this product that we give to you, this is the taste of Tobago. And with the understanding that many persons are allergic to shellfish, we want to be able to give tourists the takeaway that this part of Tobago has left Tobago with me, so I'll always remember the country and the country of Trinidad and Tobago.
This is Tobago's thing, Tobago's culture, Tobago's taste, Tobago's history, Tobago's very own crab farm, and the first of its kind. Mr. David, thank you so very much for joining me on the program this morning, and congratulations to you and to the entire committee, and by extension Digicel as well, for their contribution in making this happen. It's most exciting indeed, and something that we can all champion, be happy about and support. Thank you very much. I'll meet you very soon on the island for curry crab and dumpling.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Indeed. All the very best to you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, I do have a regional update to share with you coming out of Guyana. So when we return, we'll get into that.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and
and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. We're now getting into original data from Guyana. Canefield Burby's family was thrown into immense grief at the start of last week after 2 children died days apart. Now, the mystery surrounding the deaths has led to parents to call for a full-scale investigation, but health authorities have said the probe is already underway. Just to share with you more news that unfortunately I think 2 more children have actually passed away since this report was collated 3 days ago. So let's just take a look at the initial report from Newsroom Guyana.
Vishnu Mohabir, called Ricardo, was 10 years old, the big brother for Ariana Mohabir 9, both of Canefield Settlement, East Kanji and students of the Cumberland Primary School. They died days apart earlier this week at the New Amsterdam Hospital, and while some persons have said the deaths were from natural causes, the parents are demanding conclusive closure through a full-scale investigation. The management of the New Amsterdam Hospital said today that the investigation is already underway, though it noted that Ricardo was brought into the hospital lifeless on Sunday last. Ariana, the hospital said, was brought in on Monday, but died on Wednesday while efforts were being made to transport her to the Georgetown Public Hospital. The grieving father, Kumar Mohabir, said his son was ill with fever days prior to his death, but doctors could not determine what was wrong with him.
Well, in June, like, sometimes you just get a little fever when we carry, there's nothing to complain from me. Just tell me blood count low. We actually how come my blood count low, nothing to complain from the child.
Before he died, right? When was the last time you took him to the hospital and that happened? Like how long before?
It's like a whole year. He didn't go back for the hospital a good while. And on Saturday, he been like, he got a boat rant and he buy a set of stuff. He buy a bicycle, he buy a phone. And Sunday, this stuff happened. So he went good, and also like he's sick or he had fever.
According to the father, little Ariana developed a fever later that Sunday and was taken to the hospital Monday, where she was admitted. Nurses treated her, and though she appeared to be improving, she died on Wednesday.
In the morning, I was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and wake up, the child wake up, then he gives you the injections, and then you never catch yourself. And I told them, so I'm going to take my dad out. And when I go to the PMS with my son, then carry the child in ICU, I don't know the place name. So then get you alone in that area.
So the postmortem was done for your son already?
Yes.
What was the cause of death? You have the paper?
Yeah, the doctor said that the child had a sick and then how come they finding the sick. But the child was saying good because something in the body, the spleen getting big, sucking out the blood. So the body wasn't had blood.
An aunt, Shivani Hirlal, told reporters that her niece went into the hospital with a fever, but it was when the nurses gave her an injection she began to react badly.
From the hand, he didn't put on sea like in today's, but they use of putting the medicine, right? So when she put the meds now, Ariana start shake up and tremble up, and the girl fall for front and make grab a shake. Right?
Immediately after the gift?
Yeah, I was right there because me the one been there with she. Me grab a shake, me holla Ari, Ari, right? And the girl fall on up, she said, right? And now the doctor from the ward over so come over and tell me, say, give she something for you, give she something for you. For since that day, my knees can't even sit up, right? She's so, she is so weak, you hear? Me don't know what is the medication that they give to her. They claiming that antibiotic, right? But they overdose the child, to me thinking, because this child, the behavior in this child when the nurse gives she this injection, right? She start to react to this thing. Start shake up and the girl like it should fall for front.
The mother was inconsolable when the newsroom visited their home on Thursday. Ricardo was expected to write the NGSA exams in a few weeks.
He started doing well, and plus my daughter wasn't very well. And he's picking up a real lot. He started doing real well.
Were they helpful kids at home?
Real helpful kids, them there with me. Anywhere that I go, anywhere I think I do them helping. If I want anything, them will come and give me it. Them say, Daddy look this, Daddy look that. I get to love children. 3 children, I get this my baby left alone.
How old is he?
Ladies and gentlemen, just to update you that, as I mentioned, one report suggests that at least 2 more children have died since that report was collated. However, in the case of 10-year-old Vishnu Mahabir, also known as Ricardo, and his 9-year-old sister Ariana, preliminary findings indicate that the Burbies siblings succumbed to complications related to dengue fever. This was disclosed by Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony during an engagement with reporters last week, Friday. However, that preliminary findings and investigation is still underway in Ghana to find, to fully disclose what has caused the death of these 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for AM Prime this morning. Thank you very much to all my guests for their contributions to the conversation. Thank you very much to Mr. Tony Rackle Fraser. It's been a pleasure having him on AM Prime, as well as Mr. Walter Stewart of the NPTA, and finally Mr. Wade David from Tobago, as we spoke about the Blue Crab Farm. In your day ahead, maybe a safe one. Yeah, maybe a safe one. That's all we can hope for, and it's not just the crime that you've got to deal with now. The Saharan dust is absolutely terrible, so just be very careful out there, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe a productive one as well. A safe, productive, happy day. We'll see you again very soon. I'm Keaton Shaw. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
Deaths in deep rear, in numerous deaths in occupied territories.
But would you precisely put the responsibility on the Trump team and the Republican who just opposed or delayed this delivery?
I know that we have two-party majority in the House of Representatives, and we have support from Democrats and from Republicans. It was just several people who blocked this bill for 6 months.
Do you fear Donald Trump's potential win in the November election can change things on the ground dramatically for Ukraine? Now we just saw how his influence held up the $61 billion in aid for months.
I have a huge respect to the right of American citizens independently decide whom they want to elect as their president. But it's true that President of the United States have a huge impact to external policy. But regardless of this war has genocidal character. This means that we have no other option, because if we will stop fighting, there will be no more us.
What is your assessment on the new Emmanuel Macron, the French president's stance towards the war? Late February, when President Volodymyr Zelensky came to the Élysée Palace in Paris, we could observe a really change of mindset, of talks. And do you think it's a turning point? And how would you describe this new stance? You said recently that Emmanuel Macron broke a taboo. What did you mean by that?
I'm very grateful that President Macron broke the political taboo to discuss the issue of boots on the ground, because there are different options how it can be realized. For example, by training Ukrainian soldiers, or how to secure logistic or other things. But before it wasn't on the table, and now because of President Macron's initiative, it started to be discussed. And I know that Russia for decades was proactive. Russia did something horrible, then presented like fait accompli and pushed international community to accept this. And this is the first time in my memory when Western democracies start to take initiative, and this is very important.
Last year, Ukraine launched that long-awaited counteroffensive with Western tanks, what have you. It didn't go as planned, clearly. How will this new $61 billion in aid change anything, given that Ukraine will still be outnumbered on the ground?
Let me remind that we was waiting for the first modern tank for more than a year. And we had to start counteroffensive with zero modern plane. And this is something which you in France never allow yourself, because when you can't secure the sky, you can't go to counteroffensive. And Ukrainian soldiers have to do impossible mission to fight back with any possibility to secure Ukrainian sky, which was planted with Russian bombs, Russian planes, etc., etc. And we are still waiting these modern planes, which international partners promised us 2 years already. So I think that we have not underestimated the value of this 60 billion package bill, because it will save thousands and thousands of lives. If even at least it stops Russia, it's a huge thing for the whole Europe, because if we not be able to stop Putin in Ukraine, he will go further.
You think the strategy from the West, which is on the table now, is a strategy to help Ukraine not to fail, or is that the strategy is to help Ukraine to win, actually, the war?
Oh, it's a very important issue. It's something which I try to emphasize when I speak with representatives of governments, with presidents, with MPs of different countries. Because when large-scale war started, international community is told, let's help Ukraine not to fail. And we start to obtain the first weapons to be able to defend ourselves. And first real sanctions were introduced into force against Russia. And we are extremely grateful, because it helped us to survive. But it's time to change this narrative from let's help Ukraine not to fail for narrative, let's help Ukraine to win. Because this is a huge differences between these two narratives, and we can practically measure these differences in types of weapons, in speed of sanctions, and gravity of decisions.
But I want to ask you something, because we have had sanctions slapped every which way on Russia, but it seems that the Russian economy is proving too resilient. They know how to work around sanctions, and sanctions don't tend to work. We've seen North Korea, for instance, sanctioned every single way, but they test-fired missiles reconcile today. So what will sanctions really achieve, and should something be done to really get both sides to the table and achieve and